Hey guys, Chris here with a review for Nintendo Switch exclusive title Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. I played Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1, X-Men Legends 1 and 2, so what did I think about this title exclusive on my Nintendo Switch? Let's get to my thoughts. So the first thing that comes up whenever you bring up Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is the graphics for the game. People talk about the graphics style. A lot of people like it, a lot of people dislike it. It's kind of polarizing. I want to liken everyone back, though, to X-Men Legends 1 when it came out. I played it on the Xbox, I played it on the PlayStation. It had a very similar art style to this. Not nearly as good, not nearly as well polished, but it had a similar art style. Now, I know
Wilson
Marvel
Fisk.
Ultimate Alliance
Well,
1
he's not at Fisk Tower,
and 2
which-
and 3 are different than
know?
X-Men Legends, but it is kind of the same realm, same genre, and a lot of the same IP being used in those. And Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 had a grittier, darker style. The reason I like that style here in Ultimate Alliance 3 is because I think that style lends itself to brighter colors on the characters, which is more akin to their comic book counterparts. I also think that the new graphic style lends itself better to the moves that these characters do in the game, their power sets, and how much exaggeration we can do with this art style versus, say, the art style of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2. The next thing I want to talk about with you guys is the story for the game. If you guys are big comic book readers, great. If not, this game would still pop off the shelf, because having seen any of the MCU films, most people are aware of Thanos and the Infinity Stones. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 followed this Doctor Doom style story where he was trying to essentially use the Odin Force and the Cosmic Cube and stuff to rewrite reality. It was a really great story where he was manipulating most of the other villains of the Marvel Universe, and it was really just a big, grand story. And Ultimate Alliance 2 brought it down to a more personal level for like 90% of the game, and it was premised on the Civil War story from the comic books, where you were really picking a side, Cap or Iron Man, registered or unregistered, and that opened up some really interesting story mechanisms. It also added to the replayability of the game because you couldn't unlock Songbird and Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man. You couldn't keep them unless you were playing on that side. So, what did I think of the story in Ultimate Alliance 3? It is based on an Infinity Stone style story with Thanos, but I think it's more based on the comic books because it does have characters in it, aside from those in the roster, villains that aren't in the movies, and it does have a sort of heist and chase feel to it, as opposed to, you know, Thanos just collecting these gems. It's more than the movies. That's all I'll say. I won't spoil anything, but it's more than the movies. If you're familiar with the movies and the characters, great. If you're familiar with the comics, characters, great. If not, I think the game is still really good for anyone. I think anyone could sit down and play this and be okay with the story. It's not hard to follow. It's just a fun, easy playthrough right off the bat, okay? The next thing after story is the combat. I mentioned that I had played X-Men Legends 1 and 2, and I had played Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2. Ultimate Alliance 3 pushes it a little bit forward. Ultimate Alliance 1, every character had 4 moves that could be mapped to your buttons on your controllers, and that was great. You had more than 4 moves to play around with, though, for each character. This was a really good idea in theory, because every character was a little customizable. So your blade was different than my blade, or my Silver Surfer had these moves, yours had these moves. That's great. Ultimate Alliance 2 brought that down a little bit. It took away some of that customization and added more passive abilities. Ultimate Alliance 3 almost like triples down on the idea that no, these characters are not yours to customize, they are yours to play with. And what I mean by that is that Spider-Man's 4 moves are his 4 moves. And when they level up the way they level up. There's no alteration of that. And though that is the same in the other Ultimate Alliances, you at least had multiple moves to pick from and level up. Now, I don't actually think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because it makes the roster seem more varied. I think it's a good thing because it allows you to expand the roster more. And I also think it's a good thing because now I'm not really having to tinker with, each of the 40 characters in the game. Instead, I'm just getting to pick Cap and level up Cap, and I don't need to decide which of the 3 Shield Bash style moves I want to use. I have Shield Bash, I have Shield Throw, I have his Inspiration, his Leadership. Great. Cap's ready to go. I think it's a bonus. One thing that I have heard is that it's uninspiring. I love Angry Joe. His review, he mentioned how uninspiring it is to have these characters not have the fusion moves from Ultimate Alliance 2. So if you're a fan of the Ultimate Alliance series, you remember in Ultimate Alliance 1 we were just doing these moves and that's cool. And in Ultimate Alliance 2 they added these fusion moves. So you're Tony Stark and you're building up your meter and you boom, hit the fusion button and suddenly you're blasting Cap's shield and Cap's shield is reflecting your beam everywhere. This was really cool. It was a novel idea for like the first couple of times you did it. After that, it became very samey to like, okay everyone, let's build up our meter and then let's shoot Cap's shield with our beams. And the moves did start to repeat, right? Where like Wolverine and Cap's team-up move is the same as Black Panther and Cap's. Hulk's, fastball special with Wolverine is the same as it is with Cap, right? So like, you have all these overlaps with moves. Not everyone can have Storm's, pull a tornado and the Human Torch lights it on fire. Not everyone can have that. Ultimate Alliance 3 does something wonderful with that system. Where people, like I said, Joe would say, oh, this is uninspired. I disagree. I could not disagree more. Because now you have these characters and their signature moves, right? The moves that you grew up reading comics, seeing them do. Or maybe you watched the cartoon series in the 90s. Like I did. You see them perform these moves. Now, rather than coming up with these like crazy but samey dual techniques, now it's just Spider-Man always does these moves. But what kind of moves can those synergize with? Because now when Spider-Man, throws his wrecking ball of web fluid on the ground, it synergizes with whirlwinds, blowing them up and knocking enemies further. It synergizes with shocking moves, and shock reverberates through the ground, hitting all your enemies. I love this change. I find it so clean. I find it inspired. Because now, rather than my characters teaming up to do I don't even know what ability, now I find them using the abilities I've known they have since I started reading comics, but seeing them put those abilities together in a useful, effective way in combat. And I think learning those synergies and using those synergies is really what makes combat in this game shine above the other Ultimate Alliances. Yes, it is true, guys. You can't grab your opponents anymore. I've always thought that was silly. You can't do it anymore. And that brings me to my last sort of thing on the game, which is really the roster. There have been a lot of things said about the roster. It's balance. I love Dreamcast Guy on YouTube. I watch all of his reviews. One of the hardest working YouTubers out there. But in his review, I don't know how much of the game he played, because he said that the characters felt unbalanced, and that the more powerful characters skewed to the ones that you would want to play based on, like, visibility. And I disagree with that, because statistically, there are actual characteristics in-game. Mathematically, the characters that you would want to play, I find inferior. Gamora deals more single-target damage than any of the characters that you see in the films, like Iron Man, like Wolverine from the comics or whatever, that you want to play. Gamora outclasses all of them in single-target damage. In stagger damage, Miss Marvel can put on a show and rival the Hulk and Thor. Elsa Bloodstone, a not very well-known character, is just dynamite in this game. I disagree. I think after the first 2 hours of playing, it's really apparent that these characters are really well-balanced and mixed. To let really weird characters become favorites of players because they feel so fun and powerful to play. Of course, everyone's going to want to play Wolverine, so if you made Wolverine the most powerful character, then no one would move on to any of the other, like, 30-plus characters in the roster. So yeah, I disagree with that point. And I also disagree with the premise of reviewers saying this game has a lot of obscure characters. It's easy to say that in hindsight, isn't it? But looking back on Ultimate Alliance 1, we had characters like Blade, or Doctor Strange, or Silver Surfer, who aren't really mainstream characters at the time that game came out, unless you're a comic book fan. In which, if you're a comic book fan, all of these characters would be mainstream as well. Ultimate Alliance 2 had Penance. You would only know who Penance was if you read the Civil War comic book storyline. And even then, that's Speedball, who you would only know if you read comics. They've all had obscure characters, and that's one of the beautiful things about these games, is the rosters are these interesting mixes of your classic characters that you would want to see in these games. Yes, you'll have your Avengers, and you'll have some of the core X-Men that kind of blend with the Avengers. You know, your Storm, your Wolverine, Nightcrawler. This game has Psylocke. Great. But you're also going to have characters like Elsa Bloodstone, Miss Marvel, Crystal from the Inhumans. For whatever reason, Falcon and Black Widow made it into this game. I will say my one problem with this roster is you can count on multiple hands the number of characters that use swords. I don't know why we needed so many sword and pistol wielding characters from the Marvel Universe, but for whatever reason, they're all in the game. Aside from that, I think this is the best roster any Ultimate Alliance has had, and you'd be crazy to say anything otherwise. So overall, what do we think of the game? Marvel Ultimate Alliance, I think, is a really important game, not just for the Switch and the fact that it's exclusive, but for Ultimate Alliance fans, Marvel fans like myself. This game is actually performing really well. It did well out of the gate, and it did well on its second week, even with Fire Emblem 3 Houses coming out. We'll talk about that this week. But it did really well despite all of that. That's great, because I think that means that whether it's Switch exclusive or not, at some point in time we are going to see Marvel Ultimate Alliance 4, maybe even an X-Men Legends 3. Why hadn't we for 10 years? I blame you, Activision Blizzard. You. That's why. This is a great series. It's an easy... Well, I don't want to say the game's difficulty is easy, but it is a fun, light ARPG, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 is actually the first in the series to offer some interesting post-game content with its Infinity Trials. You can do some of them during the game, but some of them are more fun and probably more possible or easy to do post-game based on the level requirements and what level most of your characters will be playing through the whole story. I'm really addicted to this game. It is hard to put down. It is very fun to play cooperatively. It is very fun to play alone. I do think that the camera angles could have been better, but if you own a Switch, if you like Ultimate Alliance, if you think any kind of ARPGs are fun, hell, if you liked the 90s X-Men arcade game, this is a game that you should be picking up for your Switch. This is a game you should be supporting, and this is a game you should be loving like we are. Thank you guys so much for checking out the review. If you have any comments, you agree, you disagree, drop them down in the comment section below. If you like or dislike the video, be sure to let us know. And if you could, please subscribe, hit the notification icon. We have a ton of great content coming out this week. Fire Emblem 3 Houses. We have discussion videos on Ultimate Alliance, Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Ben's going to be streaming some Magic the Gathering, Arena. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel. We'll see you guys later.